So here's $1 million sleep study question that I'm not seeing doctors give a definitive answer to. And um, I'm not seeing anybody talk about this anywhere other than patients panicking at the last minute about this question. This is $1 million question. This can be a life altering question. And I still would like to propose this question to a couple sleep specialists, critical care specialists. What's the answer to this question? The $1 million question, the life and death question is, should you be taking your prescribed sleep drugs at your sleep study? So what are the ramifications of that? You know, this problem perpetuated my misdiagnosis. So what happened? I had been fighting for help with serious sleep issues, serious insomnia, serious undiagnosed sleep apnea, and other undiagnosed sleep issues for years. No one could figure anything out. I'd never heard of sleep apnea. I didn't know anything about any of this years ago. And as my sleep issues progressed, as my apnea got progressively worse, as my insomnia got progressively worse, I was being prescribed more and more sleep drugs. Doctors were trying to make me sleep. You're not going to drug sleep apnea out of anybody. You're going to make their apnea worse with drugs. So what's the answer to that? Should you be taking your prescribed sleep drugs at the sleep study or not? What are the potential problems with that? Well, here's the deal. Are the sleep drugs causing sleep apnea for you? Are the sleep drugs making your existing apnea worse, or your existing health issues worse? Well, because what do sleep drugs do? They induce, sedation, right? They induce further sedation, more sedation than normal, right? More sedation than you just being tired and going to sleep, right? Drug induced. Like, is it possible that you have drug induced sleep apnea? So, what are the problems not taking the drugs at the sleep study? So here's what happened. And I went into this sleep study. I'd been fighting for help for years. I didn't understand anything. I didn't know sleep apnea existed. I didn't know any of this stuff. I was struggling to breathe in bed, awake, struggling to fall asleep. So here's what happened at my sleep study. I went to the study. It was after supper time. There's no one to call to ask, should I take these drugs? And so I thought, well, we want to know what's organically wrong with me, like what's really wrong with me. So I didn't take the sleep drugs. And I went for the sleep study, and I only slept a couple hours, and the doctor comes in and says, yeah, oh, things look great. You didn't no sleep apnea, no this, no that. Things went great. And I was confused and I was upset because I was sleeping 3 hours a night at home. I was my life was gone. My life was already destroyed from sleep apnea, right? And I was totally confused at what he was saying to me. And I was angry because I knew something was wrong. And I went home and he reported that I was upset and, you know, I didn't feel like things were assessed right. He'd said I weaned off the drugs. No, I didn't. I told him I didn't take the medications that night. So then I went home and continued to suffer and suffer. And told my family doctor, and I continued to went home as usual, taking all my medications as usual, and continued to suffer and suffer and suffer. I continued to fight for sleep studies. After that sleep study, they started to refuse my referrals. Little did I know that, a bit of a narrative was created that I had a perception problem about my sleep issues. No, I did not. So I continued to suffer and suffer, and I continued to push for sleep studies. They continued to deny my sleep studies. I continued to suffer like a dog, sleeping 3 hours a night, fighting to survive. But I was too drugged up and cognitively impaired from the drugs to understand that what was happening. So a few years later, I finally, this progressed. What happened was, after that sleep study, I continued to sleep 3 hours a night, and things got progressively worse, and I don't know how, but things got worse to the point where I began to sleep only 1 or 2 hours a night. I was now fighting for my life, begging for my life, no answers. My doctor retired without telling me. I'm on these drugs, these powerful sleep drugs. I'm now only sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night. I'm fighting for my life. I'm in fight or flight. I'm in crisis, pardon me. So after sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night for almost a year, I began to wean off the medications. And all hell broke loose. I was in medical crisis, weaning off these medications. Nobody knew how to get me off the medications. The apnea was severe. Now I knew I had sleep apnea. I was waking up not breathing. I was waking up jumping out of bed to get my body breathing. I was so ill that I was stopping breathing during the day. I'm now fighting for my life. I'm fighting to get into the sleep lab, into the sleep study. They don't believe I'm in absolute medical crisis. They don't believe that I'm in crisis. They don't believe that I have severe sleep apnea. So I had to wait months to get in to the hospital. Sleeping 1 or 2 hours a night, stopping breathing nonstop, literally fighting for my life. When I was finally diagnosed, severe sleep apnea, my oxygen was going down to the low 70s, stopping breathing nonstop, stopping breathing as long as a minute and a quarter at a time. It took decades to diagnose my sleep apnea. Decades. So here's the magical question. Can your sleep apnea be drug induced? Can your sleep apnea be from the drugs? If at that sleep study more than 10 years ago, if I stopped the drugs that night and they're telling me there was nothing wrong, So was all this drug induced? If that's the presumption, then that means you wean off the drugs and the apnea just stops. Well, that never happened with me. Can the drugs cause so much damage that the apnea stays? Yes. Can you stop the drugs and your apnea stops? Also yes, for some people, probably. Can you have sleep apnea without drugs and your sleep apnea comes and goes? I think yes. Can you be on sleep drugs and your apnea comes and goes? I don't know. Maybe. Probably. How many millions of people have drug-induced sleep apnea and are now on CPAP treatment? They're being told for the rest of their lives. You know what? We minimize what CPAP is. CPAP is a really serious thing, and continued CPAP treatment can cause central apnea, which is a big, big deal that people don't tell you about. And in fact, I had a sleep titration study, and the higher they raised the pressure, the central apneas got more. I don't really have central apnea, but I have a few here and there. But when they raised the pressure, so did the central apneas become more, like 1 or 2 and then 3 or 4. So that's only within a few minutes of raising the pressure. What about if I'm on it long term with that higher pressure? Is it going to cause more centrals? Absolutely. But they wanted to send me home at that higher pressure, and I said no. CPAP is a big deal. And your goal, the goal of your doctor and you should be to figure out why you need CPAP, and the goal should be to get you off of CPAP. So if the drugs are causing you apnea, the goal should be to get you off the medications. So I'm wondering, is it possible that all of this was a drug-induced medical crisis? Like serious, severe sleep apnea, drug-induced for years. I have fought to get help for years, and nobody could figure any of this out. So I've strayed way far from the original topic. Should you take the drugs at your sleep study? Well, I didn't, and that was probably the right thing to do, but I was too cognitively impaired and drugged up on a regular basis with all those sleeping pills to figure out what went wrong. But all of these doctors should have figured it out. My family doctor should have figured it out. This sleep specialist should have figured it out. I didn't wean off the drugs. I stopped them for one night and then continued to fight for further sleep studies, and they refused my referrals, stating that I had a perception problem. Oh, no, I didn't. You had a perception problem. Like, you're the doctor, not me. It's not up to me to figure this out. I had no idea what these drugs can do to people. Man, what I know now? Wow, like, can these drugs cause respiratory depression? Yes. Can they cause permanent respiratory depression? Probably, if enough damage is done.